Welcome, everybody. Hello, coming at you live in New York City. This is Dayal Gurunga with the Chuta Gopi doing Spirit Matters, your daily Bhakti Center Gita podcast, where we check in with each other, read a little verse or verses from Bhagavad Gita, share a few reflections, and then take that with us into our day. How you doing, Achuta?
It's sunny, hanging out in Govinda's shadow. That's it.
How you got? Oh, Govinda. I was trying to catch up on some sleep yesterday.
Did it work?
It did, yeah. I feel better. Thank you.
Yeah. Catching up on sleep is a very interesting concept.
Very much so. Interestingly, in the first, I think I don't know, in the first chapter, no, but Arjuna is referred to as Gudakesh,
Yeah,
who's the
conqueror.
conqueror of sleep.
I often used to, especially when I would have like exams that I was like really studying for. I would go back to that and like ask both of them for assistance.
Can you help me, please?
It
All right,
worked.
so where did we leave off yesterday? You've been reading the verses and doing a great job with it.
We left off text 23.
Yes.
Right. So we're
Asking questions that we kind of know the answers to and
taking
and
of all the things in our life.
yes, being reminded of the things in our life that are going well and mm, seeing the ways that God is showing up in our lives.
Yep.
All right.
So text 23. Let me see those who have come here to fight, wishing to please the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra. Sanjaya said, O descendant of Bharat, having thus been addressed by Arjuna, Lord Krishna drew up the fine chariot in the midst of the armies of both parties.
Mm.
In the presence of Bhishma, Drona, and all the other chieftains of the world, the Lord said, Just behold, Bharat, all the Kurus assembled here. I really like that Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport that that was kind of sarcastic.
Mm.
It was supposed to be like super sarcastic. Like Arjuna's like, wait. Can you take me to the middle? Like I just want to see everybody that's here. And so Krishna's like, behold, it's the same people that we said were gonna be here yesterday. But it's also
Mm.
a little bit of like a jab. Like he's like, what are you gonna do? Run away? Not
Mm.
realizing and also kind of friendly, not necessarily playing into, but there gets to be an element of shock for the supreme person in about 5 seconds because he's like, just behold, everybody who said we just said this yesterday, we already had a meeting about it. But sure, I mean,
No,
look,
no surprise here.
yeah, and it's like what are you gonna do, bro? Fight like everybody's assembling on a battlefield. And it really is supposed to be like, what are you gonna do? Run away? And then in a second where he's like, I want to run away, he's like, whoa, you weren't supposed to say yes. Like that was supposed to be like, ha ha ha, let's go fight now.
Yeah, totally.
So I kind of like it that we get to see that God has a sense of humor. He's not always just serious. He has this relationship with so many different levels with his people.
Mm. Beautiful. I'm loving it.
There Arjuna could see, within the midst of the armies of both parties, his fathers, grandfathers,
Wait,
teachers,
in the okay, yeah, that's right. You're right. Sorry, I thought you missed a verse.
teachers, maternal uncles, brothers, sons, grandsons, friends, and also his fathers-in-law and well-wishers.
Mm. It's a lot of peeps.
It's a lot of people. And what I like is we would think that with all of these millions of people that have assembled on this battlefield, like you look into a crowd of, like if you were to go to like a stadium full of
Mm.
people, even if you were the performer on the stage in a stadium full of people, you're not looking all at all of them thinking, I'm related somehow to every single one of these people here. You'd see like the five people in the front row that are your family and they're there.
Mm.
And then the rest of these people are strangers. even if they think that they know you or whatever, they're strangers. And here, all Arjuna can see is that he is somehow related to just about every single one of those people in an intimate name to name basis. Like first names, I've known them, grown up with them, or have watched them grow up. We're all intimately connected.
Mm.
So it's really interesting how this idea of connectedness begins to trigger Arjuna's compassion, which is what everybody keeps trying to beg for today. It's like,
Hmm.
remember our interconnectedness and let it trigger your activate your compassion.
Hmm. I love you mentioned let our connectedness trigger our compassion, and this mentioning of all of the siblings and the relatives and the kindred spirits that are there in the battlefield, and Arjuna is noticing, and there's such a wide scope of connectivity that's shared, whether it's everything from fathers to grandfathers to teachers to siblings to uncles to friends to in-laws, and then he even mentions just well-wishers, just people that you have some connection to. And the lesson being pulled from that is that when we look out into the world, do we see that connectivity? Do we see that this is my brother, this is my sister, this is my father, this is my mother, this is my um, child to take care of, this is my in-law, this is my friend, this is my somebody that I'm connected to on some level, and that our ability to turn that switch off or on um, dictates our ability to express compassion.
Yeah.
You know, when we simply are able to turn the switch off of our connectivity, we're able to it fosters a natural callousness or an indifference towards the world because I think it has nothing to do with me.
And not just, that connectedness, but the fact that this is someone's family member.
Hmm.
And so he's looking at them in terms of whole families, their sons and brothers and well-wishers, fathers-in-law, uncles, teachers, guides, guardians. And so they are somebody's family.
Hmm.
And I was listening to a podcast recently, and famous social researchers and sociologists were often asked the question by other groups when something happens to your group. It's like, well, how do we band together and help you? Like something happens to women, and then men ask, well, how would you like us to help you? How do we band together and help you? And one really smart woman gave the answer. She's like, get together and then pretend it was happening to you. Pretend it was
Hmm.
happening to your group of people. Because usually when it's happening to you, nobody has to mobilize and say, well, how do we help this? When it becomes personal, that that triggering of compassion happens much quicker, and it creates this mobilization of action that doesn't need anybody else to teach you, oh, well, how do we not let this happen again? Once you've
Hmm.
put yourself in those people's shoes, it becomes so much easier. You just do.
Hmm.
And so I was thinking, when nothing really gets serious until it's personal. And for
Hmm.
Arjuna, he is making this entire battle personal.
Hmm.
In the Ramayana, we see a very similar concept. And Sri Ram loses his wife, and he is advised to go find this Vanara king Sugriva. And why? Because Sugriva has also lost a wife. So he's like, for him, it's personal. No one can really understand your problem until it's personal. And so they advise the Lord of the Universe, Ram, like, go find Sugriva. He'll completely understand. He'll know exactly how to help, because it doesn't take much. Oh, no problem. Cool. I'll do whatever it takes. You just do.
Hmm.
And so I really, I've always kind of looked at this. It's a really interesting situation that Arjuna is making it so personal.
Hmm.
And we see it all the time. People have had causes for a long time. People have been suffering from certain things for a long time. And then it's like one person. in a celebrity's family gets that type of cancer, gets that type of issue. And then
Mm,
you build charities, and then you build all this stuff and awareness and
mm,
mobilization. Everybody's looking for cures, doing all this stuff. But people have been suffering from this for a long time. But it's not
yeah,
until it gets personal and it hits
yeah,
home that we start to really, really mobilize this action.
totally. Yeah. Beautiful reflection. I appreciate that a lot. Um, and it helps me keep things a little bit more personal. I mean, I think the natural question that comes up is how do we not then just, if everything is so personal, how do we not just get overloaded? And then what does it mean to be personal then if, you know, in one sense, it's a beautiful sentiment that, everyone is my brother and sister and family member and I care with everybody the same. But isn't there a natural sense of caring more about the people that are closer to you? And if I start to extend that same feeling to everyone in the world, it can get quite overwhelming
I
and
think,
lose personalism because it's like, well, the
hmm,
fact that you're close to me doesn't make any more of a difference. So how would you respond to something like that?
I think the people that have done that are saints. You get like Mother Teresa, you get Saint Francis of Assisi, you even get Martin Luther King. You get people who have made everybody their personal friend, well wisher, etc. And if you look at their lives, they do say it gets overwhelming. It gets
Mm,
incredibly overwhelming. And then you do as much as you can as one small living entity.
mm,
And some days that might be a lot. And some days it might not look like so much. But, we're going to get to this concept Krishna speaks about of seeing with equal vision. And that's like, this is where we're going. We're heading to this point where Krishna is advising Arjuna, you know, you're on the right track. You have to begin to see with equal vision and still not lose your discernment. He's seeing all of these people on the other side, but we are forgetting what happened to bring them to the other side. What
mm,
happened was there was a game of dice, and Yudhisthira and the Pandavas were playing this game of dice against Duryodhan and his family, and Duryodhan was cheating. And they began like kind of like goading Yudhisthira to wager bigger and bigger and bigger things. First, it was his whole cavalry, then it was an army, then it was elephants, horses, etc. Then it became the kingdom. And after the kingdom was wagered, and because Duryodhan's side is cheating, they're winning everything. And Yudhishthir loses that. He's saying, I have nothing left. And they're like, well, you've still got your brothers. And this was completely unheard of. It's like who bets their siblings? Like that's not a thing. But they keep egging him on, egging him on, edging him on, and finally he starts betting off one brothers one after the other, from the youngest right on up to his very own self. They're saying, well, you still got yourself. And he's so caught up in the whirlwind of, okay, I have to do something. I'm the most responsible here for all of these people. Just one more, and I have hope that I can get this back. And finally, he wagers his wife, Draupadi, who at this point is not just the wife of the Pandavas, but the chosen sister of Krishna. Krishna and Draupadi have such a close, close relationship. He wagers his wife and he loses her. And on the Kuru side, the Kauravas, Duryodhan and his brothers and his uncle, they decide that it would be a good idea to drag this woman into the court of all of her elders, all of these administrators, politicians, kings, all of the older family members. She happened to be sequestered in her room that day because she wasn't feeling well. She happened to have her period. And so she is now dragged forcefully by the hair into this assembly. and she's screaming. She's like, I'm not even dressed properly. Like I wasn't. There's codes of conduct and etiquette. I'm the queen of one of the largest ruling kingdoms of the entire world. This is not possible. You can't do this. And finally, Duryodhan decides, it'd be a really great idea. Strip her. And she's appalled. No one's gonna say anything. So all of the same teachers, mentors, fathers-in-law, brothers, guides, no one says a word. She looks at the Pandavas, who at this point are her 5 husbands. She's got not just one, but 5 husbands. She's looking at them saying, you won't say anything either? You're telling me you can't say anything? No one can do any. I've got the strongest husbands in the entire universe, quite literally. And all of you are what? Bound by ideas of servitude? Just because somebody says you're a slave, you automatically take up that role? What are you saying? And Duryodhan's brother Dushashan begins to strip this woman in the midst of this entire. I mean, there are a whole bunch of things said, and all of them are derogatory. They insult her in every way possible. Every way possible. And finally, they go with the ultimate insult and they try to strip her. Luckily, she decides to pray to Krishna. And Krishna enters unseen in the form of an unending, unlimited sari. And so she's got an unending amount of cloth, which is unheard of, unseen before. But she's traumatized after this. Draupadi is angry and born of fire. So she's got a very fiery personality, and she is livid, saved, but she doesn't feel like she can ever forgive these people. So when Arjuna's compassion is triggered, in a second we're going to see Krishna, and he seems really callous. But what he keeps saying is, he's like, let's not forget that the same fathers and uncles, brothers and sons that you're all looking at right now, you're looking at them saying, oh, but what am I going to do? This is triggering my compassion. He's like, and where was their compassion when they tried to kill you multiple times? Where was their compassion when they tried to strip your wife naked and abuse her in a court full of the same people who are gathered together on this battlefield? And then where was their compassion? Where was your compassion then? Everybody was angry. They told me, because they tell Krishna later on how angry they are. It's like, everybody told me how angry they were. Okay, where was it? And what is the resultant action for somebody who so grievously offends these people? What happens? You mean to tell me, like, and Krishna's like, as worker of the universe and organizer of the universe, you mean to tell me that nothing is supposed to happen? And so it really brings into it a really important question. Sometimes we can feel like our compassion gets triggered. And then we have to take a second and remind ourselves, what happened to bring us to this point? Is it valid that I'm here? Are my feelings of anger and wanting to deal with a certain situation, are they valid? And sometimes that becomes the act of compassion.
That becomes the act of compassion, meaning
we say this to each other a lot in my family. I'm like, sometimes removing yourself from a situation is compassionate. Sometimes allowing people to have the results of their actions is compassionate, because they are no longer offending you. And what we can't forget is Krishna is there in the heart. And if I am a devotee and I'm praying to Krishna, then I cannot think that Krishna only sticks up for everybody else and not me. Krishna is going to stick up for me, which means there are resultant negative reactions. And so if I remove myself from a situation, if I stop this situation from happening, then it's compassionate, both to them and to me, because it's actually a duty of ours to protect those under our care, including ourselves,
Mm.
But then also it stops that person from committing those same kind of offenses. And I feel like in spiritual circles, especially in this one, in Krishna consciousness, we start to use this word offenses quite lightly.
Mm.
But it's actually really serious business. It's really intense. And Krishna is very calm when it comes to offenses against him. But when it comes to offenses against his near and dear ones, he's intolerant. He is completely like, no, that's it. That's where I draw the line. Absolutely not.
Mm.
And so Martha was saying, and no, Pasha was saying, Krishna's about to say, like, off with their heads. And it can sound kind of like, what's happening? But Krishna has this view of like, but bro, do you actually remember what happened? Remember when they started trying to kill you since you were 5? And all
Mm.
this time you've been telling me, oh Krishna, something should happen, something should happen. I'm telling you now,
Mm.
something's happening. And so my sister and I, we've talked about it. Sometimes you'll see this material world will have so many ghastly things,
Very
and
ghastly.
right, and it doesn't condone them, but and sometimes in order to make sense of how so many people sometimes can die, we think about the history of this world. And the history of this world is often built off of wars, so many wars everywhere. And so we're thinking, it's like, well, how could this happen to this person and that person and this person and that person? And I'm like, well, if we actually believe what this Bhagavad Gita is saying, then these souls, this is not just the first time they've come in. We're looking at a karmic conversation. And when we don't see people get their comeuppance in a certain lifetime, we are angered. We feel like, well, something should happen. That's it. You just get a slap on the wrist and you get to go on about your life. No, karma does not forget anybody. May not be in that one lifetime, but karma doesn't forget anybody. And
Mm.
so it doesn't excuse what happens, but sometimes it helps us to make sense of what is happening. And in making sense of what's happening, it helps us to see that maybe we don't want to set up permanent shop in this material world anymore.
Mm.
Maybe we want to figure out a way to get out of this entangling circle of all of these actions and reactions. And so this is the crux of the entire Bhagavad Gita. Krishna telling Arjuna, you want to know a secret? This material world's not broken. Like so many people are like, how do we fix this? How do we fix this? And Krishna's like, material world's not broken. It's
Mm.
acting exactly as it's set up to work. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to get get out of the prison.
Yeah. I that was a big kind of wake up call for me when I first began in spiritual life. I was a teenager, and this idea of the spirit of this material world not being our home, and this idea of realizing that, trying to make to fix a sinking ship, but realize actually like our goal for all of us is to find our home beyond this world.
Yeah.
And it was a big, I mean, there's so much more to say to that in terms of what compassion means in this world, and not turning a callous eye to what's going on, and wanting to help people and alleviate suffering, but realizing that if compassion doesn't extend ultimately to assisting each other to find a way out of this material world, we're going to be stuck in the same karmic cycle that has been dragging us around for lifetimes.
Yep.
Mm.
Because we could be the most staunch vegans and thinking it's like, well, I don't kill animals, and then that's it. Except for there are microorganisms that every time you roll over in bed, you kill. There are microorganisms that are born from your perspiration.
There's microorganisms in the water of New York City.
There are.
Microscopic shrimp.
There
Kishore's
are.
not here. He's a big, he always mentions that.
And there are
Microscopic
every,
shrimp.
like, every time you breathe, There are microorganisms dying. And when you start to really understand, when Krishna is like, I am in every single living entity's heart, even down to the atom, you start realizing that, oh shoot, all my stuff that I thought I was doing, maybe, what? What's
Mm,
happening? And this is why Srila Prabhupada says, like, he's like, technically, we're not activists. We are spiritual practitioners, because this material world is set up where just as soon as you think you are doing the best thing,
mm,
this material world setup is like, actually, there's more entangling things going on behind the scenes than you even know of.
mm,
And so sometimes it can feel like, what's the point? What's the point? The point is to really come to the conclusion that this place is not the eternal home.
mm,
Like, this place is built for the living entity to be caught up in actions and reactions.
mm,
It's like if you had people in a prison and you're like, hey, you've served enough time, you can come out of the prison. And they're like, but I'm so important here. I'm really important to the other inmates. I've got like a job at the wood shop. I make little bird houses and things, and I've got a really nice setup. I've made my cell look really awesome, just the way I finally got my cell the way I wanted it to look. I
mm,
think I'm gonna stay. And they're like, but there's a world outside of this prison, bro. Like, get out of the prison. You could have a bigger house all to yourself. And like, I'm gonna stay here. I finally found a sense of belonging. That's us.
mm. Not our home. There's a world out there, bro. Dana's like, that is so in my mind. Yes, we're gonna talk about the mind. Kimberly, what kind of takeaways you got for us today?
We're taken away to let our connectedness trigger our compassion for each other
Hmm.
so we can lift each other up and help each other find a home beyond this material world.
Hmm. Beautiful. Thank you. And are you walking away with something today, Chuta?
The idea of triggers. We always talk about the bad ones. I kind of want to find what triggers my happiness, my compassion.
Hmm.
What's triggering me today to be more loving?
What's triggering me today to be more loving? Um. Hmm. For me, I'm just going back to that idea of compassion, and what does it mean for me to live in a mood of compassion and bring that, and then evolving it a step further of what is compassion. What does it mean to be compassionate? um and so those are just some thoughts in my mind. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chuta. Thank you for all those listening. Thank you for being there, being here, being there, wherever you are. We love you lots. Appreciate you. And we'll be back again, same time, same place tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.